Alex Carter looked out at the stars through the main window of the space station. He had been living here for 3 months now, completely alone. The station was called Epsilon 7, and it sat far away from Earth near a dying red star. His job was simple but boring. He watched for strange signals in space that might lead to new travel routes between star systems. Most days were the same. Alex would wake up, check the computers, eat breakfast from packets, run tests on the equipment, and then sit in the observation room watching empty space. The station made quiet humming sounds from the air systems and power generators. Sometimes the computers would beep when they finished checking themselves, but those were the only sounds. No voices, no footsteps. No other people at all. Alex did not mind being alone at first. He had always been quiet and liked having time to think. But 3 months was a long time. He missed hearing other people talk. He missed the sound of laughter. He even missed the small annoying things like someone leaving dirty dishes in the sink or playing music too loud. Now he would have been happy to hear any of those things. Tonight felt different somehow. Alex could not explain why. He sat at his work desk with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. The coffee was not real coffee, just chemicals mixed to taste like it. Everything on the station was fake or recycled. Even the air he breathed had been through the filters so many times that it tasted flat. He was looking at his computer screen when something caught his eye. A movement near the big window. Alex looked up quickly. His heart started beating faster. There was someone standing there, a girl. Or at least something that looked like a girl. She stood very still, looking out at the stars. Alex blinked hard and rubbed his eyes. When he looked again, she was still there. But something was wrong. She was not solid like a normal person. She looked like she was made of heat waves, like the shimmer you see above hot roads in summer. Her shape kept moving and changing slightly, but he could tell she had a human-like body with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. He looked at his computer screens. The life support system said there was only one person on the station. Him. The motion sensors showed nothing moving. The heat sensors only picked up his body temperature. According to every instrument on the station, he was completely alone. But his eyes told him something different. Alex stood up slowly. His chair made a scraping sound against the metal floor. The sound seemed very loud in the quiet room. The figure by the window did not move. She just kept looking at the stars like she had not heard anything. He took a step forward, then another. His hands were shaking. Was he going crazy? 3 months alone in space could do strange things to a person's mind. He had read about astronauts seeing things that were not there. Hearing voices, feeling like someone was watching them. Maybe this was happening to him now, but she looked so real. Well, not real exactly, but she was there. He could see her outline. She was taller than him, maybe 6 feet. Her body was thin and her head seemed slightly too large for her body. He could not see her face clearly. Everything about her was blurry and kept shifting. Alex cleared his throat. The sound felt wrong, like he was making noise in a library. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. What was he supposed to say? Hello, who are you? Are you real? All of those seemed stupid. Before he could decide, the figure turned. She turned her head first, then her whole body. Even though Alex could not see her face clearly, he knew she was looking right at him. And he felt something, surprise. She was surprised. How he knew this, he could not say. But he was certain of it. They stood there for a long moment, just looking at each other. Alex was afraid to move or speak. He felt like he was watching a wild animal that might run away if he made any sudden movements. The air in the room felt strange, like it was charged with electricity before a storm. Then she did something that made his heart stop. She raised one hand slowly like she was going to wave. Alex saw her arm lift, saw the shimmer of her hand moving through the air. He started to raise his own hand in response, and then she was gone. Not slowly, not fading away bit by bit. Just gone in an instant, like someone had turned off a light switch. 1 second she was there. The next second the space by the window was empty. Alex stood frozen with his hand half raised, staring at nothing. He walked quickly to the window and looked around. Nothing. He went to the computer and checked all the sensor logs. They showed nothing unusual. No doors had opened. No airlocks had been used. The station was sealed tight, and according to every system, no one had been there. Alex sat down at his desk again. His coffee was even colder now. His hands were still shaking. He tried to think logically. He was a scientist. He did not believe in ghosts or spirits. There had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe the station had a hologram system he did not know about. Maybe there was a gas leak making him see things. Maybe he really was going crazy from being alone too long. But deep in his gut, he knew none of those explanations were right. He had seen something real. Someone real. And she had seen him too. The surprise he felt from her was proof of that. She had not expected him to notice her, which meant she was used to not being noticed. Which meant she had probably been there before, maybe many times, and he had never seen her until now. That thought made him look around the observation room with new eyes. If she had been here before without him seeing her, where else might she have been? The sleeping quarters? The bathroom? The kitchen? Had she been watching him this whole time while he went about his daily routine, completely unaware that he was not alone? The idea should have been scary, but Alex found it was not. Instead, he felt excited. If she was real, if she was here, then he was not alone anymore. And that was worth more than any fear he might feel. Being alone was worse than being watched by an invisible stranger. At least the stranger was company of a sort. Alex stayed in the observation room for the rest of the night, hoping she would come back. He did not see her again, but he felt like someone was there with him. The station felt different now. The quiet did not seem so empty. The humming of the machines sounded less lonely. He found himself talking out loud, saying simple things about what he was doing, just in case she could hear him. When morning came, if you could call it morning in space where the red star gave off only dim light, Alex was tired but more awake than he had felt in months. He had a purpose now. He was going to figure out what she was, how to see her more clearly, and most importantly, how to communicate with her. He was going to prove that he was not crazy, that she was real, and that somehow, impossibly, he had made contact with something that no one else could see. The empty station did not feel empty anymore. Somewhere in its metal corridors and quiet rooms there was a girl made of shimmers and heat waves. A girl who was surprised that he could see her. A girl who had been invisible to everyone else but not to him. And Alex Carter, the lonely astronaut on observation station Epsilon 7, was going to find her again. The next few days changed everything for Alex. He started seeing her everywhere. At least he thought he did. Every time he turned a corner in the station, he would catch a glimpse of something moving. A shimmer in the air. A slight distortion like looking through water. Sometimes it lasted for a few seconds. Sometimes it was gone before he could even turn his head. The computer still said he was alone. All the sensors showed normal readings. But Alex knew better now. She was there. She had to be. He just needed to find a way to see her more clearly and to let her know that he wanted to communicate. He started leaving notes around the station. Simple messages on paper stuck to walls in places where he had seen the shimmers. The notes said things like, "Hello, and I can see you, and I want to talk." He felt silly doing it, like a child leaving notes for Santa Claus. But what else could he do? He did not know if she could read English. He did not even know if she could read at all. Alex also tried talking out loud more. He would walk through the station telling himself what he was doing, describing his thoughts, explaining human things in simple words. He talked about Earth, about the oceans and mountains, about cities and forests. He talked about music and food and books. He felt crazy doing it, but he kept going anyway. On the 5th day after first seeing her, something happened. Alex was in the plant room where the station grew vegetables for food. He was checking the tomato plants when he saw her again. This time she was clearer than before. She stood near the water system, looking at the plants with what seemed like curiosity. Her shape was still blurry and kept shifting, but he could see more details now. Alex froze. He did not want to scare her away again. He spoke quietly like he was talking to a nervous cat. He told her about the plants, how they made oxygen and food, how they needed water and light to grow. She did not move or respond, but she did not disappear either. That felt like progress. He kept talking for almost an hour. He told her about how Earth plants worked, about how humans needed to eat and breathe, about how space stations had to copy what Earth did naturally. She seemed to be listening. At least she stayed there the whole time. Her attention focused on him or the plants or both. When Alex finally stopped talking and turned to leave, giving her space, something amazing happened. He felt a touch on his arm, not a physical touch exactly, but something like a cold breeze or an electric tingle. He looked down but saw nothing. Then he looked at his arm more carefully and noticed tiny bumps on his skin, like goosebumps in the exact pattern of fingers. She had tried to touch him. Alex smiled. His heart was pounding with excitement. She was trying to communicate. She wanted contact just as much as he did. He looked around the plant room trying to see her, but she was gone again. Still, this was huge progress. They had made physical contact or something close to it. That night, Alex could not sleep. He lay in his small bed in his quarters thinking about what had happened. Who was she? What was she? Where did she come from? Why was she invisible to the sensors but not to his eyes? And most importantly, how could he help her become more visible? He got up and went to the observation deck. The stars were beautiful tonight, if you could call it night. Time did not mean much in space. The red sun just glowed dimly all the time, never really rising or setting. Alex stood at the big window and looked out at the darkness between the stars. Then he saw something that made him catch his breath. On the window glass, letters were appearing, not written with anything physical. They just appeared in the condensation on the glass like someone was writing with an invisible finger. But they were not letters from any human language. They were symbols. Simple pictures. A circle with lines coming out of it like a sun, a stick figure of a person, a question mark. Alex understood immediately. She was asking about the sun and people. About Earth maybe, or about him. He looked around for something to write with. He found a marker in a drawer and drew his own symbols on a piece of paper, then held it up to the window. A yellow circle for the sun, a blue and green circle for Earth, a stick figure for a human. More symbols appeared on the window. These were more complex. They looked like mathematical equations, numbers and patterns that seemed to mean something, though Alex was not sure what. He copied them down carefully on his paper. Then there were new symbols that looked like directions or coordinates. Finally, a drawing that seemed to show waves or frequencies. Alex spent the rest of the night studying what she had written. He used the station's computer to analyze the patterns. The coordinates pointed to a region of space that human ships did not go to. Old reports said that area had strange sensor problems. Ships would go there and their instruments would go crazy, showing readings that did not make sense. But the crews never saw anything wrong. They would come back saying everything was fine, but their computers would have recorded all kinds of weird data. The mathematical pattern was a frequency. A wavelength! Alex was not an expert in physics, but he knew enough to understand that different types of energy traveled at different frequencies. Light was one frequency. Radio waves were another. Heat was another. This frequency was outside the normal range that humans could detect. It was in a space between the frequencies that human sensors usually looked for. An idea started forming in Alex's mind. What if she existed at that frequency? What if her whole species did? That would explain why sensors could not detect her. They were not looking at the right wavelength. It would be like trying to see radio waves with your eyes. The radio waves are there all around you, but your eyes are not built to see them. But why could he see her at all? That was the puzzle. If she existed at a frequency that was invisible to humans, how was his brain able to piece together her image from the tiny clues she left behind? Maybe human brains were better at finding patterns than he realized. Maybe his brain was taking all the small distortions and putting them together into a picture, even though his eyes could not actually see her directly. Alex decided to test his theory. The station had sensors that could be adjusted to look at different frequencies. Usually they were set to look at normal light, heat, and radio waves. But he could reprogram them. It would take time and he would have to be careful not to break anything, but it was possible. He worked for 3 days straight, barely sleeping. He modified one of the sensor arrays in the observation deck, carefully adjusting it to detect the frequency she had shown him. He had to guess at some of the settings because he was not sure exactly what he was looking for, but finally he thought he had it right. With shaking hands, Alex turned on the modified sensor. At first, nothing happened. The screen stayed blank. His heart sank. Maybe he had gotten it wrong. Maybe he had wasted 3 days on a theory that was completely incorrect. Then the screen flickered. And suddenly it was full of data. The sensor was picking up something. A lot of somethings. Alex stared at the screen in shock. He switched the display to show a visual image instead of just numbers. There she was, clear as day on the screen. She stood in the corridor just outside the observation deck, looking directly at the sensor camera. Alex could see her face for the first time. She had large eyes that seemed to glow slightly. Her features were delicate and angular, not quite human but beautiful in a strange way. Her skin had a faint shimmer to it like mother of pearl. She was wearing something that might have been clothing, though it was hard to tell where her skin ended and the clothing began. But what really shocked Alex was the expression on her face. She was smiling, a huge, delighted smile that needed no translation. She was happy that he could finally see her properly. She raised both hands and waved at the camera, her movements excited and eager like a child who had just found a new friend. Alex waved back at the screen, grinning like an idiot. Then he ran to the door and looked out into the corridor. With his eyes, he could still only see a faint shimmer, but he knew she was there. He ran back and checked the screen. She was right where he had left her, still smiling, still waving. They had done it. They had found a way to truly see each other. And that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Alex and the invisible girl learned to communicate. It was slow at first. She could not speak in a way that his ears could hear. Her voice existed at the same frequency as her body, completely outside the range of human hearing. But through the modified sensors, Alex could see her moving her mouth, trying to form words. He set up monitors all over the station, all connected to the special sensors. Now he could see her wherever she went. She seemed to enjoy this. She would walk past cameras and wave or make faces or do little dances. It made Alex laugh. Despite being from different worlds and different dimensions, she had a sense of humor. They developed a system for talking. Alex would speak out loud and she could hear him perfectly fine. For her to respond, she would write symbols on surfaces or use hand gestures that he was learning to understand. Sometimes she would point at objects and make expressions that showed what she thought about them. It was like playing a very complex game of charades. The girl's name was impossible for Alex to say. Her people used sounds that humans could not make. So she told him to call her whatever he wanted. He chose the name Luna. When he explained that Luna was the name of Earth's moon, and that the moon was always there even when you could not see it during the day, she seemed to like that. She smiled and nodded, touching her chest where a human heart would be. Luna taught him about her people. They called themselves the Resonant. That was not a perfect translation, but it was close enough. They existed in a space that overlapped with normal reality but at a different frequency. It was hard for Alex to understand at first. Luna drew pictures and diagrams, trying to explain it in ways a human could grasp. The best way Alex could think of it was like this. Imagine if radio waves were alive and intelligent. They would exist all around you, passing through walls in your body, completely invisible. You would never know they were there unless you had a radio to detect them. That was what the Resonant were like. They existed in the same space as humans, but at a frequency that normal human senses could not detect. The Resonant had been around for a very long time, much longer than humans. They had been watching human civilization since the beginning. They saw the first humans look up at the stars. They watched as humans invented tools and built cities and created art. They were there when humans launched their first rocket into space, and they had been quietly observing ever since, but they had never made contact. Other alien species existed in the galaxy, many of them, but none of them could see the Resonant. Their sensors were not built to detect that special frequency, so the Resonant stayed hidden, watching and studying but never revealing themselves. Until now. Until Alex. He was the first person from any species who had managed to perceive them, and Luna wanted to understand how he had done it. Through their weeks of communication, she helped him figure it out. The answer surprised them both. Humans were different from other intelligent species. Most aliens relied completely on their biological sensors. They had better senses than humans in many ways. Sharper eyes, better hearing, more sensitive touch, but they trusted those senses absolutely. If their sensors said nothing was there, then nothing was there. They never questioned it. Humans were different because their senses were actually pretty bad. Human eyes could only see a tiny range of light frequencies. Human ears could only hear a limited range of sounds. Human skin was not very sensitive compared to many animals. So humans had evolved to not trust their senses completely. Instead, they looked for patterns. They made guesses. They imagined what might be there based on tiny clues. This was how ancient humans had hunted. They could not smell as well as wolves or see as well as eagles. But they could track prey by looking at footprints, broken branches, disturbed grass. They could imagine where an animal had gone even though they could not see or smell it anymore. They could predict where it would go next. This ability to see patterns in incomplete information had kept humans alive, and that ability had never gone away. Modern humans still looked for patterns everywhere. They saw faces in clouds. They found meaning in random events. They believed in things they could not see or touch, like love or justice or hope. This drove other species crazy. To them, humans seemed to make up stories about nothing. But to humans, the invisible was just as real as the visible. When Alex looked at Luna, his eyes did not really see her. But his brain noticed tiny things. The way light bent slightly around her. The small movements of air. The feeling that something was taking up space even though the space looked empty. His brain took all those tiny clues and assembled them into an image. He was seeing her the same way ancient humans saw the trail of an invisible animal. Luna found this fascinating. Her people had studied humans for thousands of years, trying to understand them. They had watched human art and music and stories. All of it was about seeing the invisible. Paintings tried to show emotions you could not touch. Music tried to express feelings that had no physical form. Stories were about people who never existed. Everything humans created was an attempt to make the invisible visible. The Resonant had wondered if humans might be able to perceive them. They had hoped for it, and Luna had volunteered to test the theory. She was young for her species, curious and brave. She had asked to be assigned to a human station, to spend time near a human and see if they would notice her. Most of her people thought she was wasting her time. But she had wanted to try anyway, and it had worked. Alex had seen her. Not because he was special, Luna explained. Any human could do it if they paid attention. Alex just happened to be alone for a long time, with nothing to distract him. He had time to notice the small, strange things around him. He had looked at the empty space and wondered if it was really empty. And that wondering had been enough. Now they needed to decide what to do next. Luna had made first contact, but she was just one person. The rest of her species was watching and waiting. They wanted to know if they should reveal themselves to humanity. It was a big decision. Once the secret was out, it could not be taken back. There were practical reasons for contact. Humans were expanding into space quickly. They were opening new routes for their ships, building stations and colonies. Some of these places were important to the Resonant, not as homes but as something else. Luna tried to explain it. The Resonant did work that was necessary for reality itself. They maintained certain frequencies and patterns that kept space stable. It was like they were the maintenance workers for the universe. When humans opened new jump routes, sometimes they disrupted these patterns. It was not on purpose. Humans had no idea the Resonant were there or what they were doing. But the disruptions were becoming a problem. A few critical routes had already been damaged. Nothing catastrophic yet, but it was only a matter of time before something went seriously wrong. The Resonant needed to tell humans to avoid certain areas of space. And humans needed to know why, which meant learning about the Resonant. Luna thought Alex could help make this happen. He could be the bridge between the two species. He could teach other humans how to perceive the Resonant, and he could help the Resonant understand human culture and communication. But there was a catch. To truly see and understand the Resonant, Alex would need to change. Luna could help him train his brain to perceive them more clearly. But the training would alter the way his mind worked. He would be able to see and sense things that other humans could not. It would be permanent. He could never go back to seeing the world the way he used to. Some people might think that sounded wonderful, but Luna warned him about the downsides. He would exist partly in both worlds, human and Resonant. It might be lonely. It might be difficult. Other humans might not understand him anymore. He would be changed in ways that could not be undone. Luna made it clear that the choice was his. She would not pressure him. Her people would eventually contact humanity anyway, when the time was right. But having Alex as a bridge would make things much easier. It would help both species understand each other. It would potentially save lives on both sides. Alex took 3 days to think about it. He walked around the station, looked at the stars, thought about his life. He had always been a bit of an outsider, even on Earth. He had always felt like he saw things that others missed. Maybe this was what he was meant to do. Maybe this was why he had been sent to this lonely station in the first place. Maybe he had been looking for Luna all his life without knowing it. On the 3rd day, he found Luna in the observation room. She was standing by the window looking at the red sun. He watched her on the monitor for a moment, then spoke out loud. He told her yes, he would do it. He would be the bridge between humans and the Resonant. He would let her change his mind so he could see her world properly. And together they would teach both species how to understand each other. Luna turned and looked at the camera. On the screen, Alex could see tears running down her face. He did not know that the resonant could cry, but apparently they could. She put both hands over her heart and bowed to him, a gesture of deep respect and gratitude. Then she smiled, that beautiful bright smile that needed no translation. They were going to do something incredible together. They were going to change everything. The training began the next day. Luna explained that it would take time, maybe weeks or even months. The human brain was flexible, but changing it required patience. They could not rush the process or Alex might get hurt. His mind needed to adapt slowly to perceiving things it had never perceived before. The first exercises were simple. Luna would have Alex sit quietly and try to sense her presence without using the monitors. She would move around the room and he would point to where he thought she was. At first he was wrong most of the time, but slowly, over days of practice, he started getting better. He learned to notice the tiny distortions in the air, the slight changes in temperature, the feeling of space being occupied. Then they moved to more complex exercises. Luna taught him meditation techniques that her people used. These were ways of focusing the mind and opening it to new types of perception. Alex had never meditated before. He found it hard at first. His mind would wander. He would get distracted, but Luna was patient. She would guide him back to focus whenever he drifted. As the weeks passed, strange things started happening. Colors looked different to Alex. They were brighter, richer, like he was seeing shades that had always been there but he had never noticed before. Sounds had more depth. He could hear harmonics and overtones in the hum of the station's engines that he had never heard before. Even his sense of touch changed. Textures felt more complex. The metal walls of the station had warmth and coldness and tiny vibrations all at once. Luna said this was normal. His brain was learning to process more information. It was like he had been seeing the world through a foggy window his whole life, and now the fog was clearing. Everything that had always been there was becoming visible. Then one morning, about 3 weeks into the training, Alex woke up and saw Luna clearly for the first time without any monitors. She was sitting in the chair next to his bed watching him sleep. When she realized he could see her, really see her with his own eyes, she gasped and covered her mouth with both hands. Her eyes were wide with shock and joy. Alex sat up slowly, not taking his eyes off her. She was beautiful. Her skin had a faint glow like moonlight on water. Her eyes were large and bright, changing color slightly as he watched, shifting between silver and gold. Her hair, if you could call it that, looked like it was made of light or energy. It moved on its own, floating around her head like she was underwater. But more than how she looked, Alex could feel her presence now. She had an energy around her, warm and friendly. It was like standing near a campfire on a cold night. You could feel the warmth without touching the flames. That was what Luna felt like, comforting and safe. Over the next few days, Alex's vision continued to improve. He started seeing other resonant too. They were everywhere on the station. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They had been there all along, invisible to him. Now he could see them moving through the corridors, working on equipment he could not understand, doing their mysterious maintenance work on reality itself. Some of them noticed that he could see them now. They would stop and stare at him in surprise. A few of them tried to communicate, making gestures or writing symbols in the air. Luna had to explain to them that Alex was still learning and could not understand their language yet. But they seemed excited anyway. He was proof that contact with humans was possible. The changes were not just visual. Alex started understanding things without knowing how he understood them. He would look at the resonant working and suddenly know what they were doing, even though no one had explained it to him. He could sense emotions from Luna and the others, not clearly like reading a book, but like feeling the mood of a room. When Luna was happy, the air around her seemed lighter. When she was worried, it felt heavier. Luna explained that this was how the resonant communicated with each other. They did not just use words. They shared feelings and concepts directly. As Alex's brain adapted, he was starting to pick up on this type of communication. It would take time before he could do it as well as they did, but the foundation was being built. There were difficult moments too. Sometimes Alex would get headaches from processing so much new information. Sometimes he would feel dizzy or confused. The world looked strange now. layered with things that had not been visible before. It was overwhelming at times. Luna stayed close during these moments, helping him work through the discomfort. After 2 months of training, Luna said he was ready. Ready for what? Alex asked. Ready to go home and teach others, she replied. Ready to be the ambassador between humans and Resonant. Ready to show humanity that they had never been alone in the universe. The idea scared Alex. He had been alone on the station for so long that he had almost forgotten what it was like to be around other people. And now he would be going back to Earth to tell everyone about an invisible alien species that lived in another dimension. They would think he was crazy. They would never believe him, but Luna had a plan. The Resonant had prepared evidence. They had detailed maps showing which areas of space were critical to their work. They had data about the frequency ranges they existed in. They had technology that could detect them, based on the modifications Alex had made to the station sensors. And most importantly, Luna would come with him. She would show herself to human scientists, let them study her, prove that she was real. Alex felt better knowing Luna would be there. Over the past months, she had become his best friend. The loneliness he had felt before meeting her seemed like a distant memory now. He could not imagine going back to a world where she was invisible. But then again, that world would not exist anymore. He could see her now. And soon, if everything went according to plan, everyone else would be able to see her too. They spent their last week on the station preparing. Alex gathered all his notes and data. Luna brought in equipment from her people, devices that could help humans learn to see the Resonant more easily. Some of the other Resonant came to say goodbye to Alex. They touched his hands, their touch feeling like cool water or warm air. They made gestures that seemed to mean good luck or safe travels. One of them, an older Resonant who Luna said was very important, put both hands on Alex's shoulders and looked into his eyes. Alex felt a wave of pride and hope wash over him. The Resonant were counting on him. The supply ship arrived on schedule. The pilot was surprised to see how healthy Alex looked. Most people who spent months alone in deep space came back thin and tired and a bit strange. But Alex seemed energized, excited, almost glowing. The pilot commented on it. Alex just smiled and said he had made some interesting discoveries. The pilot did not ask for details. As they left the station and jumped through space toward Earth, Luna sat next to Alex in the passenger area. The pilot could not see her, of course. To him, Alex was sitting alone, staring at empty space and occasionally smiling at nothing. But Alex did not care what the pilot thought. He could see Luna clearly. She was nervous about going to Earth, about meeting more humans, about revealing herself to the world. But she was brave. She held Alex's hand, her grip feeling like silk and electricity at the same time. They were going to change everything. The lonely astronaut and the invisible girl. Together, they would introduce two species who had existed side by side for thousands of years without knowing it. They would bridge the gap between visible and invisible, known and unknown, and nothing would ever be the same again. As Earth came into view through the window, a beautiful blue and green marble in the darkness of space, Alex felt a mix of emotions. Fear of what was coming, excitement about the possibilities, pride in what he and Luna had accomplished, and underneath it all a deep certainty that this was right. Humanity needed to know about the Resonant. The Resonant needed to be known, and he was going to make it happen no matter what. Luna squeezed his hand and pointed at Earth. She had never seen it before except from far away. Now they were approaching it, about to land on the surface. Her eyes were wide with wonder. Alex realized that she was just as nervous as he was. Maybe more. She was the first of her kind to make direct contact with humanity. She was taking a huge risk. If things went wrong, her people might never forgive her. But she was doing it anyway because she believed it was important. That belief gave Alex courage. If Luna could be brave enough to reveal herself to a whole planet, then he could be brave enough to tell the truth to his own people. Together they would face whatever came next. The invisible girl was about to become visible, and the human who could see her was about to change the world. The first month back on Earth was the hardest. Alex had to convince his superiors that he was not crazy. They listened to his story with skeptical faces. A species that existed at an invisible frequency? An alien girl who had been living on the station with him? It sounded like the plot of a bad science fiction movie, but Alex had proof. He showed them the modifications he had made to the station sensors. He showed them the data logs with readings that did not match any known phenomena. He showed them Luna herself on video screens connected to the special equipment. At first they thought it was a trick, some kind of hologram or digital creation, until Luna picked up objects and moved them while remaining invisible to normal cameras. That got their attention. You could fake a lot of things with computers and cameras, but you could not fake an invisible hand moving solid objects around. The scientists started taking him seriously. They built bigger and better sensors based on his designs. They set up test rooms filled with detection equipment, and they invited Luna to come and be studied. Luna was patient with all the tests. She let them scan her with every instrument they had. She answered their questions as best she could through Alex, who was still learning to translate between human language and resonant concepts. She demonstrated her abilities. She walked through walls because her body did not interact with normal matter the same way. She showed them how she could manipulate certain frequencies to affect the physical world in small ways. The scientific community was amazed and confused and excited all at once. This was first contact with an intelligent alien species, but it was unlike anything they had imagined. The resonant had been here all along, invisible, watching humanity develop. It changed everything humans thought they knew about being alone in the universe. Alex started the training program. Using the techniques Luna had taught him, he showed other people how to perceive the resonant. It was not easy. Most people struggled at first. Their brains were too rigid, too set in their ways of seeing the world. But some people got it quickly. Artists seemed to do well, musicians too. Anyone who was used to perceiving things that were not directly visible had an easier time. Within 6 months, hundreds of humans had been trained to see the resonant. Within a year, thousands. The training program spread to universities and research centers around the world. Special schools were set up to teach people how to expand their perception. It became a new field of study, almost like learning a new language or a musical instrument. Anyone could learn if they practiced enough. As more humans learned to see them, the resonant became less shy. They started appearing in public places, walking through human cities, observing human life more openly. At first, this caused panic. People who could not see them yet were scared by stories of invisible aliens everywhere. But as more people learned to perceive them, fear turned to curiosity and then to acceptance. The resonant provided humans with detailed maps of space. These maps showed which areas were safe for human expansion and which areas were too important to resonant work to disturb. It turned out that humans had already disrupted several critical zones without knowing it. Nothing catastrophic had happened yet, but the resonant had been working hard to repair the damage. Now, with human cooperation, they could prevent future problems. This cooperation led to formal diplomatic relations. Earth established an embassy for the resonant, and the resonant appointed ambassadors to work with humans. Alex became the first human ambassador to the resonant. It was a job he had never trained for and never expected, but it fit him perfectly. He understood both species. He could translate not just words but concepts and feelings between them. Luna stayed with him, helping him navigate the complex world of interspecies politics. Together they worked to build understanding. They gave lectures at universities. They wrote papers about resonant culture and human culture. They mediated disputes when misunderstandings arose. It was exhausting work but also deeply satisfying. Other alien species in the galaxy watched all this with mixed feelings. Some were impressed by humanity's adaptability. Humans had done something no other known species had managed. They had learned to perceive a dimension of reality that everyone else had missed. This confirmed what many aliens had suspected. Humans were unpredictable and surprisingly capable. Some aliens were worried. If humans could learn to see the invisible resonant, what else might they learn to perceive? What other secrets of the universe might they uncover? Humans were already expanding aggressively through the galaxy. Now they had an advantage that no other species possessed. It made some aliens nervous, but most aliens were simply curious. They wanted to know how humans had done it. Delegations came to Earth to study the training program. Some of them learned to perceive the resonant too, though it was harder for them than for humans. Their brains were wired differently. They relied more on direct sensory input and less on pattern recognition. Still, a few succeeded. The ability to see the resonant was spreading beyond humanity. 5 years after Alex first saw Luna on the station, formal contact between humans and resonant was well established. The two species had become partners, working together on projects that benefited both. The resonant helped humans understand advanced physics and dimensional theory. Humans shared their technology and creativity with the Resonant. It was not always smooth. There were conflicts and misunderstandings. The Resonant found human emotions confusing and often too intense. Humans found Resonant logic cold and detached, but they learned from each other. They found ways to bridge the differences, and slowly, genuine friendships formed between individuals from both species. Alex sometimes returned to Observation Station Epsilon 7, which had been converted into a joint research facility. It was no longer a lonely outpost. Now it was bustling with activity, humans and Resonant working side by side. But Alex liked to go to the observation deck alone sometimes, especially late at night when the red star was at its dimmest. He would stand at the big window and remember what it had been like when he was alone, when he first saw Luna standing in that exact spot. It seemed like a lifetime ago. He had been so lonely then, so desperate for any kind of company. And now he lived in a world filled with beings he could never have imagined. Luna would often join him during these quiet moments. She would appear beside him, as solid and real to him now as any human. They would stand together and watch the stars, not needing to talk. Their friendship had changed the world. But in these moments it was just two friends enjoying each other's company. Sometimes Alex thought about how different his life would have been if he had never seen her. He would have finished his assignment on the station and returned to Earth. He would have gone back to a normal job, a normal life. He might have been happier in some ways, certainly less complicated, but he would have missed all of this. The adventure, the discovery, the chance to change history. Luna told him that her life had changed too. Before meeting Alex, she had been curious about humans, but also afraid. She had not known if humans would accept her people or fear them. She had taken a huge risk by revealing herself, but it had paid off. Now she had friends from two species. She had a purpose. She was making a difference. The story of Alex and Luna became famous throughout the galaxy. It was the story of first contact between humans and Resonant. But more than that, it was a story about seeing beyond the obvious, about noticing what everyone else had missed, about believing in things that seemed impossible. It was, many people said, a very human story. Humans had always been good at finding patterns where others saw nothing. They had used that ability to discover atoms they could not see, to detect radio waves they could not hear, to map distant galaxies they could barely perceive. Now they had used it to find an entire dimension of reality that had been invisible to everyone else. Other species began to wonder what else might be out there, hidden from view. If one invisible species could exist, why not others? The galaxy suddenly seemed much more mysterious and much more interesting. The Resonant had been hiding in plain sight for millions of years. What else might be waiting to be discovered by someone who knew how to look? But those were questions for another day. For now, Alex was content. He had found a friend when he thought he was alone. He had discovered a new dimension of reality. He had become a bridge between two species. And he had proven something important. The universe was stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. You just had to know how to look. As he stood in the observation deck with Luna beside him, watching the distant stars, Alex felt grateful. Grateful for his loneliness that had made him notice her. Grateful for her courage in revealing herself. Grateful for the chance to be part of something bigger than himself. He had been sent to a remote station to watch for signals in space. He had found something so much better. He had found friendship, purpose, and proof that humanity was never truly alone. The invisible alien girl was invisible no more, and the human who had finally seen her had changed everything. Together, they had opened a door that could never be closed. Humanity and the Resonant would walk forward together now. Two species learning to understand each other. Two dimensions of reality finally connected. And it had all started with a lonely man who noticed a shimmer in the air and wondered when.